goosebumps. One, of course, is his own personal journey. Two, imagine the potential lying within, right? Not just in him, I would argue in every one of us. Every one of us have the power to transform ourselves to that delta. And the delta is from zero educated. Meghraj is now earning 15,000 rupees a month, working in our office now as an executive assistant to some of us trying to get things done, right? It is also interesting and ironical that Meghraj, and team, we run a process, we run a BPO in Tumkur, we run a rural BPO in Tumkur. For one of the largest, India's largest BPOs, we run an HR process. And you know what the interesting part about the HR process is? Whenever anybody quits in that company, whenever a graduate quits in that company, the termination letter is sent by a zero-educated villager from Tumkur. We run the entire HR exit process for that company. So it's interesting, when somebody quits, a termination letter is sent by these guys saying, you get out, it's our time now. Right? So the possibilities are immense. I want to share another very interesting story in fact, Meghraj, if you just play the next, if you click the next slide, you heard of Aaj Ki Raat Hai Zindagi? So Meghraj was featured 2 weeks ago. We went, met Mr. Bachchan, spoke on his show, right? And they were stunned. They were saying, this amount of confidence I have not seen. So this came out on the 3rd. If you Google, it's on Hotstar, you can see the episode. You'll see another girl here called Chandana. Chandana was from the same batch. She comes from a village called Chiknali. Chandana was 10th standard, 12th standard pass, but she had never stepped out of her village. She says, I had only heard English as a foreign language. Even though I had English, I was learning it in Kannada, and I had absolutely no confidence, right? So we started looking at only zero educated, but when Chandana came in and said, listen, if you take English, I am 12th, Meghraj is 0, but our English is the same, or lack of English is the same, right? Lack of confidence is the same. So why can't you take us into this program? And how Chandana came into the program, right? And Chandana's transformation has been as stunning as that of Meghraj. Can I have Chandana on the stage, please?
Good afternoon, everyone, and wish you a happy Makara Sankranti for all. And I'm from Tumkur district, a small village called Chikkanaikkanahalli, and I have passed 12th standard in Kannada medium, and after that I had no options. I wanted to become a teacher, but because of my low marks I could not get government seat. And in the village, if we discontinue our education, there is only one way for the girls to get married and go. I had only one option that time. So I was very upset about that because I was not happy to get married and go, and I wanted to do something. So by that time, it was a complete change for my life. The head I came to my village to take interviews, to give the training, and I got information with some of my friends. I went and attended the interview. I did not know for what purpose they came and why they are taking interview and all. It was only one intention: I want to go out from my home. I want to do something. So I said, okay, I went and attended the interview, and then there was 3 groups they made. One round in Kannada, one round in English, one round in Hindi. So I was, very happy to see the people who speaks in English. But I was not, I was very afraid of English also. And when I was in my school and colleges, I used to read English in Kannada guide, that will come. So I used to answer it. So then I said, okay, fine. There was around 300 students who attended that interview. I said, no, I'm going to attend the interview in English because I can see the people at least who speaks in English. So and I went and attended the interview in English, and I was one of the girl who was selected for the training. And it was and I was very happy that day, and I went very happily to home, and I said my parents that I got selected for this training and I want to go to Bangalore for the studies. Then my mother said, no, I'm not going to send you. Girls are not supposed to go outside because I never been out of my village, and even my parents never been out of my village. As I said I want to go to Bangalore, they were so afraid to send me. I said, no, my mother serious, I'm not going to send you anywhere, be at home. And it was very difficult for me to convince my mother, and finally she agreed, and she sent my father with me to stay and see the plays and all. Then I came to Bangalore, and it took 7 months to learn English, and Megraj and me and our team, everyone started from the alphabet, learned 2 letters, 3 letters, and it was it was so different than the college and our training center. In the college it was like boring for me, but when I went to the training it was completely different. There was a lot of fun with learning, and and every time there was a motivation from our facilitators. You can do it. Many times we tell no, we cannot learn. No, you can do it. It was the motivation was the first inspiration for us to grow on. After that we started working in a BPO. Then in meantime, I also, when I was in my village, my dream was very small. I wanted to become a teacher. After that, when I came out my village, I have seen more people like Madan sir, Rajesh sir and all. Then I thought, no, it is a small one. Becoming a teacher is a small one. I want to do something more, and I wanted to become an entrepreneur. Then my dream is being changed. I want to become an entrepreneur. Then I, started a small BPO at home, taking 5 to 6 people from the next batch who was trained from Hedaldai. Started with that, and I worked for 5 to 6 months. But there was one thing, I was not so experienced in that. I could not get paid properly, so I could stop at that time. Then again I was behind of Madan sir. I want to do something else. Then I also realized I want to get first experience before I do anything else. Then again I joined back to the Hedaldai, and went back to Tumkur district and started a Hedaldai training center. And there are around 200 to 300 students got training in Tumkur center. Now I am also running different programs at Hedaldai. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity to share my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandana. In fact, Chandana runs our entire Tumkur operations, and she was in charge of starting off Tumkur. And Tumkur is our largest hub, where we employ more than about 80 people now, just in Tumkur alone. The interesting incident that I remember about Chandana was very interesting, fascinating. I had a CEO friend of mine, a very senior guy, who had come from the US. Prashant, you know PV. So this guy is a serial entrepreneur, runs many companies. So he had come to visit us 2 years ago. And he was in his, he's an Indian but thickly accented American accent. He was saying, so what do you want to be? He asked Chandana. Chandana said, and he had of course introduced himself as, I'm the CEO of this company, I run this, I run that. So Chandana looked at him and said, I want to be a CEO. So he looked at her and said, yeah, but which company? And she looked back at him and said, why not your company? The guy was shocked. He said, wow, nobody has ever asked me that question. Right? And I said, why not? Right? I said, if you guys can think you guys can do a good job, I think these guys will do a better job. Right? So what I want to highlight with these examples, and we have seen many, many more. So Hedaldai, we have trained over about 2,500 people, not just college dropouts, school dropouts, college graduates, everybody. It's not about English. I don't care about English. I don't care about grammar. It's about your confidence. Do you have the confidence to stand up on the stage in front of 1,000 people and speak? If you can do that, you can do anything in life. Right? It's that lack of fear. It's that fearlessness. And that's what makes good entrepreneurs. You have to have the courage. You have to have the confidence. You need to be fearless. He says, come what may, I'll see what happens. Right? That qualities exist in each and every one of us. We haven't dug enough. So one of the people who've been inspired, who's inspired us, how many of you heard of Professor Mohammad Yunus? Mohammad Yunus, Grameen Foundation, the Nobel laureate, right? Phenomenal work. I went to visit him in his villages in Bangladesh, and the kind of work he's done with the women of Bangladesh and giving them that confidence. Money was one part, but giving that confidence was phenomenal. He says a very beautiful thing. He said to us, everybody has treasures deep inside them. It's only unfortunate that many of us die without knowing that the treasures lay within us. We never get to discover it. So go ahead, push yourself hard. Discover those treasures. And when you discover those treasures, the obvious thing that you will do is to become an entrepreneur. Because you'll discover all the strengths that you need to go and say, forget about asking for a job, I'll create my own job. I will create jobs for others. Right? I will build enterprises that people should look up and say, you know what, this is so interesting, right? And there have been many, many stories, again, on people who are doing it not because they wanted to be entrepreneurs, just about at it. I'll tell you another very interesting story of a 12th standard dropout youth that I met in a place called Abigere. Any idea where Abigere is? Sorry? Abigere is about 60 kilometers from Gadag. Okay, this is Gadag district. So I was on a travel. I do these usual road trips. I just stop and chat up with people. So I was in this guy's carpentry shop. Okay? 12th standard dropout. He's learned how to make tables, chairs, etc. And he's the only guy in his village, I think from 2,000 to 2,500 population, which has a 3-phase power because he has a planing machine. So I was chatting up with him. I was saying, how do you do business? What do you do? How do you generate business? And one of the things in sales, in business, I'm sure, either you see once you start off is, how do you get customers? So ask him, in a village like this, how do you get customers? You seem to be making 10,000-15,000 rupees a month. How do you get customers? So I want you to picture this. Picture yourself in the shoes of Manjunath. I'll ask a question to you guys, and I want some of you to answer. Think about it for a minute. If you're Manjunath, it's a village, 2,500 people, right? You have no money to put up a billboard, radio advertising, nothing. You're just making chairs, tables, and giving it to customers. If you are in that village in Manjunath's position, how will you get customers? How will you get people to place orders for furnitures on you? Any answers? Think about it for a minute. Imagine yourself to be Manjunath, 12th standard dropout, in Abigere, running a carpentry shop. How will you generate orders? And he's alone, right? He does everything. It's a small shop. It's maybe 10 by 10. He's the guy who opens the shop. He's the guy who builds the whole thing, right? How will you do it? Any answers? Go to every street.
Wherever it has been occupied, so go for the next street and take the orders, or new construction homes, wherever.
Correct. So you're saying go search for customers, go give them pamphlets, brochures. But remember, this guy's alone. If he does that, there's nobody to make the furniture there. Right? But possibly. Huh? Attracting? How? Yeah, by doing some promotions, fair. Possible, but he has zero money. He says 15,000 rupees I get, I spend 15,000 rupees because I have to pay rental, electricity, I have a family of 4 kids, right? How will I support him? So there's no money. Yeah, you could do a fair.
Creating a bus shelter with this furniture.
Creating a
Bus shelter.
that also costs money. Lots of money. Okay, imagine. So I sat there and I said, you don't tell me. I came out with the same options. I said, have you done advertising? He says, sir, duddellide sir. I said, will you hire somebody? Sir, yaar bartar sir nange. Standard issues, right? So I said, how do you do? But he says, I'm generating 5 orders every month. I said, how do you do it? He said, 1 year ago he came out with this interesting idea. So when he does beds and dining tables and all that, there are people around surrounding villages who place the order on him, right? He says, I charge 300 rupees to deliver it. So he puts it on a tractor and the tractor goes to their home, delivers it and comes back. He says, I pay 100 rupees more to the tractor driver. I ask him to take the most circuitous route to reach that village. So if he has to go like this, he'll go like this and reach the village. He says, I have a nephew, 10-year-old nephew. I write on a sheet of paper, take photocopy, Xerox it, and I say, this bed is being delivered to so-and-so's house. This phone number is this. My phone number is this. This costs 3,000 rupees. If you need something like this, call me. What this kid does is gets onto the tractor, goes along the tractor stops at various points. This kid gets down, has a drum, beats it, people come out, he just distributes these pamphlets and he goes. He says, every delivery I do, I generate 2 sales calls. Because imagine, he's doing reference. He's showcasing a product. He's saying, this is not just mine, somebody's bought it, which means somebody's paid for it. And he says, I incentivize the guy who's buying, saying, if you allow me to do it, I'll give you 200, 300 rupee discount. Now, the guys are happy, they're getting cheaper, and it's also bragging right, that I am buying a new table. Imagine the ingenuity of this entrepreneurial thinking. This is what I call as entrepreneurial thinking, right? You have a problem, you have resource constraints, you're then thinking, how the hell do I solve this problem? And look at the very simple solution he's come out with. In B schools, in the MBA colleges, we struggle for 2 years to teach customer centricity, to teach entrepreneurial thinking, to teach how do you use your resources in a way that you can maximize your yield, right? But there are many people who are doing it. So I see, I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs. Have you heard of TIE Bangalore? It's called TIE Bangalore. Ravi and I sit on the board. Prashant, of course, has been a great supporter. I mentor a lot of entrepreneurs and they talk about risk. I say, go spend a week in the village and then let's come and talk about risk. When you say, oh, but I need at least 50,000 rupees a month to survive, otherwise how will I go watch all the Shah Rukh Khan movies that I need to watch? I need money to do that, do this. I'll say, then you're not talking about risk, right? If you go and put yourself in Manjunath's shoes, you don't know where your next money is going to come from. You don't know where your next order is going to come from. You have to pay your rental. You have to pay your electricity bill. You have a family of 4 to feed, right? That is entrepreneurial resilience because he's at it. He says, I'll face the risk. I'll take whatever it takes and I will think. He's not just sitting at home saying, somebody give me order. If order comes, great, I'll do it. If not, I won't do it. He's at it. He's saying, how do I build a better life? When I asked him, what do you want to do in life? He gave me a very interesting answer. Again, look at how he's thinking. How many of you heard of this huge furniture giant in the world called IKEA? Okay, so good number of hands. IKEA came to fame primarily because of one thing. They started doing modular do-it-yourself furnitures, right? So they said, hey, you don't have to order a furniture. I'll give you kits. You can go build it yourself. This guy has obviously not heard of IKEA. But when I asked him, what's your idea? I said, do you have an idea? He said, sir, I have an idea. What is it? He says, all the orders come all at one time. Because that's when the harvesting season is, that's when the people get money. Everybody wants to buy when they have the money. So I get more orders during that time. But obviously labor is not available because everybody is doing their own stuff. So he says, I get orders, but supply of talent is not available and I'm stuck. He says, in festival seasons, I have to say no to many people. I feel bad. So he said, what if I use the lean season and built just the stands, tabletops, chair backs, so on and so forth. And when orders come, I'll only assemble it. I won't build it. So in a way, he was telling me he wants to be the IKEA for rural. Right? Such a brilliant idea. So he's not given up. So all it takes, my friends, is to think. Many times I meet people who say, hey, entrepreneurial thinking, right? I don't need to do all this stuff. I'm just enough. I'm happy. And I argue that there's a difference between being an entrepreneur and thinking entrepreneurially. Everybody, if you have to survive in this world, have to think entrepreneurially. Whether you be an entrepreneur or not is a secondary choice. So, having run skills assessments and worked with maybe 500 corporates in India, one of the biggest things HR heads tell me is, find me somebody who's going to think entrepreneurially and I will hire them. So my favorite interview question to anybody, any role is, tell me one thing that you've done where you've thought entrepreneurially. Okay? I want you guys to answer this question today. Go home, put a pen in your hand, on a paper, till now, write down all the things. If I were to be your interviewer, right? I know none of you are going to apply for a job, but even if it's a VC, you want investments, I'm going to ask you, tell me what entrepreneurial thinking have you done so far, right? And it could be any example, but you need to have at least 3 examples. I'm sure you would have done it. You would have not thought about it, right? Please write that down. And then the only thing simple is, how do you do it every month? How do you do it every day? How do you do it every minute? And entrepreneurial thinking is coming naturally to you. Then you have a choice. The best companies will hire you because they want people like you, but you wouldn't want to join them. You'll say, listen, like how Chandana said, CEO of your company, when somebody comes and offers you a job, he says, I don't want your job, I want your company, I want to buy your company. That's what you guys have to say, right? So please start thinking entrepreneurially. And there are many instances. It doesn't have to be anything great, grandiose. You don't have to have a big idea, right? Do you see problems around you? whenever I speak to people, Bangalore bari tondrene sir, traffic tondre, potholes tondre, neer tondre, electricity tondre. It's all problems, right? I'm sure we all grumble many times, saying there's so much of problems. Do you agree with that? There are problems everywhere, right? For an entrepreneur, what does the problems look like? Wonderful, right? For the entrepreneurial thinking guys, every problem is an opportunity in disguise, right? You heard of this company called Red Bus, right? What does Funny say? He says, when I was going for my Deepavali holidays, I found a lot of problems in trying to book my tickets. Every bus was blocked. That day, no tickets were available. We all struggled. We played back. We had to find agents, find the tickets. So it's a problem. If there was someone else in Funny's place, we would have grumbled, said, next time in the car lo bodana, busse bada anta. Right? But what did he think? He says, if I am facing the problem, so must be thousands and hundreds of thousands of people like me. Why don't I find a solution? So that's how Red Bus was built. How do I simplify bus ticket booking for the masses? And look at what the company has been today, right? So go out, find problems, experience them, and I argue from a rural India perspective, it's a different world out there. If you think you have these problems, rural India has this many problems, right? Which means for entrepreneurs like us, rural India and rural India, the peri-urban India presents a massive opportunity. Massive is an understatement. It also presents an opportunity because everybody out there is having a phone. I think soon the total number of phones in India will exceed the number of people we have, right? Smartphone penetration, data penetration has gone up like crazy. Right, so maybe in the interest of time I'll play that video sometime else, but I went to this village called Kalam Vihara, which is in the back of the beyond of Maharashtra. No road, no water, no electricity. School is dilapidated. There's no public health center. You picture the worst village in your mind, this comes to the mind. The total number of annual income in that village, it's an Adivasi village, tribal village, 2,500 rupees per annum is the monthly income. So I went there, we were trying to get some artists online, and I was coming out of the village, I wanted to find a route to go to the next town, and I'm busy asking people. One kid comes along who seems to be some 17, 18 years old, he says, I'm 10th standard fail. And I ask him, how do you go and get there? He says, sir, in Marathi he says, 1 minute. Whips out his phone, it's a smartphone, he's got an Idea 3G connection. He pulls out Google Maps, tells me where I am, shows me on Google Maps, this is how you get there. And I'm saying, this village has no water, no electricity, no education, no health, nothing, but he has a phone. It has a 3G connection. And there's a guy who knows how to run it. Right? Look at the opportunity. Imagine if this guy were to be trained to deliver healthcare services, to deliver financial services, to deliver education, all on the phone, using 3G. Right? The village can start improving. That is where the opportunities are. So I'll end by saying, go find problems. For those of you interested to work in rural, if all 800 of you turn up at Headlight tomorrow and say, I want to do, I'll find work for all of you. We'll have interns, we can create any number of projects you want. We can deploy you to different parts of Karnataka, different parts of India. There's enough and more work. Those of you who are interested in interning, come over. We will make you experience the real India, the real Bharat. We'll make you come back thinking, my God, there are so many problems. But the entrepreneur in you will be saying, my God, there are so many opportunities. And go build for that. Because I think as entrepreneurs, we have a social mission as well, right? It is, of course, we can build the next food ordering app, we can build the next e-com ordering app, all for rural, all for urban, which is fine. But I want you to be entrepreneurs who think about how do I solve problems of the country, right? The category now is being called about as social entrepreneurs. In fact, I argue that in my worldview, there's nothing called as a social entrepreneur. So people say, are you an entrepreneur or are you a social entrepreneur? I ask them the question, in my worldview, there's no social entrepreneur. If I ask you the question, I'll ask you, are you an entrepreneur or an anti-social entrepreneur? Right? Not the other way around. Right? So all of you must think about how do I solve social problems and make India better by leveraging our entrepreneurial and energy and creating jobs. I think that is the biggest challenge we have ahead of us. I'm 100% confident that all of you, at some point of time in your life or the other, will go out and make India proud. Thank you so much. Happy to take any questions. Yes.
You're talking so much about the entrepreneurship and everything, and so solving social problems.
Sure.
I think you should stress more about the problems within the house as well.
Sure.
You see a lot of them. For example, I can give you Varun Agarwal. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
Look at all those people. They had people around them.
Yeah.
Their own family.
Correct.
They're bogged down by their own problems. So shouldn't you be stressing more about how to feel?
Sure. See, my sense is all of us have problems. Okay? We can first try to solve it and then figure out how to do that. Obviously, charity begins at home. If you don't solve the problems at home, you can never go out, right? But my only thing is that if you start dreaming only that, hey, first I need to solve my problem, we are not dreaming big enough. I want us to start from there and say, how do I dream so big? And then, of course, I'll have to work backwards. If I can't solve my problem at home, how the hell will I solve world problems? But the vision has to be solving the world problem. The vision should not be about solving your daily problem.